This is CBC Nova Scotia News.
In the red again. Nova Scotia farmers post big losses for the 8th year in a row.
Coastline risk calls for the province to fill what some say is a major gap in protecting Nova Scotia shorelines.
And hitting the brakes, Halifax's mayor wants to pause work on new bike lanes.
Increasing clouds and then drizzle and then showers working in from west to east through the later stages of Tuesday into Tuesday night. Your full forecast is coming up.
Good evening. Nova Scotia's farming industry has not turned a profit in nearly a decade, and last year it lost more than $40 million alone.
That marks the 8th year in a row that the industry has been in the red. As Taryn Grant reports, it's a reflection of the economic challenges, and they are concerning industry leaders in the province.
Managing this small farm on the outskirts of Halifax is Amy Hill's passion, even if it doesn't make for the best business case.
I'm not making a living wage. My husband has to work off farm in order for this to work.
And yet, Snowy River Farm is in better shape than many other farms in the province. Statistics Canada says last year, Nova Scotia farms overall lost more than $40 million.
Last year, my farm did make money. It was not a lot of money, but it did make money, but it was due to the fact that we actually pared down a lot, and instead of it being my husband and I's full-time job, it just became my full-time job.
Nova Scotia is not the only province where the farming industry was in the red last year, but it is the only province where this has been a consistent issue for 8 years in a row.
We are feeling a pressure. There's no question about that.
The Nova Scotia Federation of Agriculture is trying to figure out why farms are struggling more in Nova Scotia than other provinces. Extreme weather events in the past couple years were a blow to a lot of local farmers, but that doesn't completely explain what's happening. The Federation is working on a long-term strategy in the hopes of guiding farms into better financial standing.
As farmers, we have to really be in that mindset as business owners, because that's what we are. And sometimes we let our passion override a business decision.
Hill applied that business mindset when she scaled back last year. It allowed her to turn a profit, a first in 15 years on the farm. But it was only $6,000, and it came at a different kind of expense.
It means we grow less for our community, and I'm really disappointed in that. But if we wanted the farm to survive itself, then we had to make some changes.
Nova Scotia Agriculture Minister Greg Morrow would not do an interview. His department says it recognizes these are challenging times for Nova Scotia farmers. Taryn Grant, CBC News, Cooks Brook.
Municipal leaders and residents say the province's approach to coastal protection has a major gap. The province says it's up to municipalities to make their own rules protecting the shore. But local governments say infilling is often beyond their control. Haley Ryan has more.
This stretch of coastline on Western Head in Queens County now features a patch of dirt infill. It's unclear whether the project on private property follows proper guidelines. But even if it does, resident Jessica Bradford says it represents a larger issue stemming from the lack of province-wide coastal protection.
We know the importance of living shorelines at this point as well. That it made me wonder, how is this allowed to happen?
The excavation removed trees and grasses. Bradford says she's worried this will worsen flooding on the road, which has been submerged in recent storms.
This infilling is going to be claimed by the ocean. There's going to be impacts likely to the road that have been sped up. And so who ends up paying for that? It's the taxpayers like ourselves who end up having to pay for the cleanup.
CBC News reached out to the property owner but did not receive a response. When the PC government decided to not pass the Province-Wide Coastal Protection Act last year, they said municipalities could create their own rules. But municipal leaders say they don't always have the power to step in.
There's problematic infilling along our shoreline now, and so we need pretty urgent action on this.
Christian says municipal bylaws can only address infill or vegetation removal on private land when it involves a development permit. If there isn't one, like in Western Head, the province has jurisdiction.
And I understand the residents coming to us, and I appreciate their advocacy, but we simply don't have a leg to stand on.
Municipalities also can't control projects that cross over the high water mark, like many armored stone walls. This project on Little Crescent Beach in Lunenburg County has brought many complaints from residents. The municipality of the District of Lunenburg does have coastal bylaws requiring building setbacks, but they can't prevent a similar rock wall going in somewhere else.
I think this is a misstep on the part of the provincial government, and this points to one of the areas where we need to get more alignment between the province and the municipalities on issues like infilling.
CBC News asked the province about this jurisdictional issue, but they did not answer the question. The province has provided templates and consultants for municipalities to use for their coastal bylaws. They also released coastal flood maps and guidelines so landowners can make informed decisions about protecting their land and buildings from sea level rise and erosion.
What is currently being done is not working. Coastal property owners are not making informed decisions, and unfortunately, something more is needed. We need leadership and we need legislation.
Haley Ryan, CBC News, Western Head.
The Sabaganagidig First Nation Band has dropped its lawsuit against the Federal Department of Fisheries and Oceans and the Attorney General of Canada. The suit alleged that DFO had violated the moderate livelihood rights of two of its members when it seized their traps set under a self-governed fishery on St. Mary's Bay. Sabaganagidig claimed in the suit that the federal government does not have the authority to interfere in its self-managed fisheries. Late Friday, the band sent a letter to the court saying it was discontinuing its suit but did not provide reasons. Meanwhile, the United Fisheries Conservation Alliance, which represents commercial fishermen, says it's going ahead with a lawsuit that aims to define the terms of a moderate livelihood fishery.
RCMP in New Glasgow have charged a 22-year-old man for online hate speech targeting Jewish communities. The three charges include a charge of advocating and promoting genocide. He was arrested on Friday.
To our knowledge, this is the first time this charge has been laid in Nova Scotia. It has been laid in other jurisdictions that we're aware of, but it is still quite a rare charge to be laid, and that is particularly due to the fact that it requires the Attorney General consent before it's laid.
The man is also facing charges of public incitement of hatred and willful promotion of hatred.
Halifax Mayor Andy Fillmore wants to hit pause on all new bike lane projects in the city. The mayor says the move is about relieving congestion. The CBC's Preston Mulligan gathered some reaction to the mayor's idea and has this report.
In a bid to find any way to reduce congestion and save money, Mayor Fillmore is suggesting a closer look at bike lanes. The mayor says too often road space is reduced without exploring alternatives. Bill McKenzie, a lifelong biker, tends to agree.
Do you think that the bike lanes are adding to traffic congestion? What do you think about that?
You know what? They do. In some places, down along the waterfront, they really do. You know, there's no room in some places for bike lanes.
The mayor says he's not anti-bike. He calls it pro-planning and pro-congestion relief. Amy Milkey doesn't own a bike, but she thinks the mayor is wrong.
It just doesn't feel like a really well thought out argument. It sounds like a mayor who's not listening to its citizens and what people want. And I think that it's also a safety thing and also an environmental thing. We're also in a time where there's climate change and global warming, and we should be kind of expanding all the green solutions that we can.
Some cyclists say there is a growing negative climate between those in cars and those in bikes right now, and any suggestion that bikes and bike lanes are creating congestion only makes that worse.
I think that people are very angry at the traffic and looking for somebody to blame, and that can be somebody walking, somebody taking their car, or anybody. I think there's a lot of anger out there right now, and it's pretty dangerous biking.
You mostly drive a car?
I drive a car daily.
What do you think of bike lanes?
I prefer bike lanes because I find it scary to drive with a bicycle in the same lane. I'm not annoyed by them. I just want them to be safe. I want me to be safe. And cyclists' lanes, bike lanes are how we do that.
The mayor says with the province's focus on rapid transit, not to mention the growing cost of bike infrastructure, now is a good time to reassess. He'll present his motion to council on Tuesday. Preston Mulligan, CBC News, Halifax.
Well, not a bad day for a ride on the bike today, certainly around Halifax. Ryan Snoddon with us now from the Weather Centre.
Yes, it picked up over the weekend weather, although we did get some sunny breaks on Sunday.
Yeah, Sunday afternoon turned out great, and then that really carried through into a terrific Monday. And yes, great day for a bike ride anywhere across the province today. Not too warm, high temperatures into the high teens and a few low 20s out there. So really pretty much in the wheelhouse for where we should be for this time of year. Now for Tuesday, we're really going to be a province divided. If you are along the Atlantic coastline, a southeast wind is going to be keeping temperatures capped in the 12 to 13, 14 range in and along the Atlantic coastline. Now working your way away from that Atlantic coastline, you're going to find some more sunshine, and shielded from those onshore winds, we're talking about temperatures popping into the low 20s. Cape Breton will see an increasingly southeast wind there as well, keeping temperatures cooler. And so as a result, we are going to be seeing that real big divide. Now for Tuesday, again, it's just some spotty showers, and then those better chance for showers will march in Tuesday evening into the overnight. It's a quick moving system though, back into the sun midweek. We'll talk about it coming up.
We're all for it. Okay, thanks, Ryan.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
The Cape Breton Regional Municipality has new firefighting equipment to help fight wildfires. Firefighters say they are still worried about the large number of downed trees and debris left by Fiona, which could be fuel for fire. Kyle Moore reports.
This wildland truck is part of a proactive plan the Cape Breton Regional Municipality has put together to fight wildfires. It's a one-man operation that can hold a lot of water. The equipment is new this year and was recently used to fight a wildfire in Richmond County. The fire reached about 15 hectares in size and spread over mostly wooded areas and had crossed at least one roadway.
It holds 1,800 gallons of water. It has nozzles on the front and rear bumper to protect itself or to extinguish while driving along the side of a road. It also has a roof-mounted turret that is controlled from in the cab by the operator. The truck is a one-man operation truck.
Another piece of new equipment is this side-by-side that can provide easy access to trails or wood roads.
Can also rehab them in the area, so like during heat exhaustion, they can get in an air-conditioned cab, like in the middle of the fire. As well as we have multiple 1-tons that carry, anywhere from 200 to 400 gallons of water.
We're now being proactive when it comes to this stuff.
The new equipment is welcomed by Glace Bay Fire Chief John Chant. His firefighters recently battled a brush fire for about 4 hours.
This fire is, I believe, is what's to come, except the next one could be on a much larger scale. We have a lot of downfall from Fiona, a lot of underbrush is now dying off, and it's definitely going to be a concern, I would say, in the future.
That concern is shared by CBRM Fire Services, who have been worried about the downed debris left behind by Hurricane Fiona.
It's a large concern. In the early spring there, we did a helicopter tour out around Louisbourg, that area, Gabaroos. There's a lot of trees down in the woods, and if that catches fire, we have to have a plan to get ahead of it because we can't put equipment or firefighters in with the tangled debris.
According to Environment Canada, CBRM is considered abnormally dry on the Drought Condition Index. Kyle Moore, CBC News, Sydney.
Canadians will have even more difficulty getting their parcels delivered. The union representing workers at DHL Express Canada says the company locked them out on Sunday, and it launched a strike in response hours later. This comes after contract negotiations broke down between the two parties. Unifor says the company wants to change the driver's pay system, which it says would hurt employees. The work stoppage will disrupt delivery service for about 50,000 customers across the country. All of this is on top of the parcel delivery slowdown that's tied to the Canada Post contract dispute.
The Cape Breton Farmers Market has filed for bankruptcy. That's according to a newspaper ad from insolvency trustee Goldhar & Associates. The Farmers Market struggled financially after the pandemic and was locked out of its space in downtown Sydney, owing thousands of dollars in back rent. The first meeting of creditors is scheduled for next week.
An annual event at Nova Scotia's Acadia University is trying to restore biodiversity in the area, one plant at a time. The native plant sale took place at the school's Harriet Irving Botanical Gardens on Saturday. Experts say wildlife and insect populations are declining significantly, but gardeners can help reverse the trend by planting native species on their property.
So that's my hope. I hope that's not problematic, but but kind of just doing my best to make some reparations on the land, and so it's really nice to be able to have access to all this native plants that will suit the meadow and the forest that I get to live in and share.
Acadia University says they've sold more than 100,000 native plants since the event started over 2 decades ago.
Today is the last day of Eid al-Adha, the celebrations taking place throughout the world, including here in Halifax, where the municipality's Muslim community gathered this past weekend to celebrate.
Also known as the Festival of Sacrifice, the event lasts several days, and organizers say it's about bringing people together.
We've been celebrating Eid al-Adha, or the Festival of Sacrifice. This is to celebrate and commemorate the legacy of Prophet Abraham, peace be upon him, for his devotion, submission, and sacrifice for the sake of God. We can feel the spirit of unity during that Eid. So everyone comes together as Muslim families, not just individuals. And it's not just about rituals, it's also for caring, sharing, and giving.
Well, it feels amazing. Seeing a lot more Muslims around is super exciting. I remember, the reason we've come to this big hall is because we're starting to outgrow our masjid. Volunteering and giving back to this community means a lot to me because it's done so much for me that I just want to give back and see other people super happy too. For me, I believe that all of us have been given an ability to do something, and we have to work towards a greater good of helping our community and making things better in our world for the sake of God. And so for me, as someone who has the opportunity to work with the masjid and take part in youth at school, I see that as the strength that I've been given, and I just want to use it to my full advantage.
On this special day, you can feel like you're not alone. Because when people like me, when they move from back home, they are single, they're alone, they don't have people around. So when such a big day comes in, you don't really have anybody. It's a little disappointing, but you come here, you be part of this diverse community. They welcome you with open hands, Ummah Mosque especially. In Toronto, it's a little more difficult to find a community. I mean, there are way more people over there for sure, but in here, there's way many people. For such a small city, Ummah Mosque, they have a huge number of people supporting them, visiting them, praying every day. So what I found different here was they were very open, and I always felt included in every single decision. I always felt like I'm making a change, I'm playing a part in this event.
If you are new, welcome. Come see us, come to the masjid. We're all here and we're ready to support you.
Pretty nice looking evening out there.
Not a bad looking evening.
Ryan's up next with the full weather forecast. We're back after this.
The weather update is brought to you by Tourisme Gaspésie. Plan your stay in Gaspésie at tourismegaspésie.com and enjoy extraordinary moments.
Oh, yeah, lots of people out for a walk, for a bike ride, as we saw earlier in the program today, because it was pretty darn nice.
I know. And we're going to have some more of that because it's a weekday, right?
Yes, but at least we did. I mean, we had rain for the 12th straight weekend. We had some rain.
Is that what it was? 12 straight?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's not go for 13.
So, no. We salvaged part of Sunday.
Yeah, that's right. The Sunday afternoon was beautiful. Was beautiful for pretty much everybody. It was a little late clearing for Cape Breton in the east, but terrific today, of course, for Monday. And have a look at our webcam video. This is, of course, Lunenburg, and that is, of course, the Blue Nose 2.
Very nice.
Maintenance day today. Getting cleaned up and shined up and ready to go back. I'm assuming touring some folks tomorrow. And beautiful evening there in Lunenburg right now as we look at the temperatures. We got 14 in Lunenburg, 15 in Halifax, and temperatures warmest in the valley and the North Shore. And this really is going to be the setup again for tomorrow, though the wind is going to be more dominant from the southeast, a stronger southeast wind. So I'm not expecting the temperatures will climb quite as warm as they are right now along the Atlantic coastline. They will be a little bit cooler, as you will see in the forecast, and those water temperatures are still pretty chilly. Winds right now, are not too gusty. Tomorrow we're going to turn those gusts up a little bit as well. Looking at some clouds in the mix, but overall pretty fine day, and that smoke from the wildfires out west, not quite as in the mix today. You can see this is the system that we're going to be watching. Couple of showers ahead of it along the warm front, and then this is the cold front that will come through Tuesday evening into the overnight as we back things out. Area of high pressure here over the west and southwest of the United States, and that is going to be moving in behind, and so we'll see a pretty quick clear out here. Temperatures tonight ranging between about 7 and 10 degrees. Could see some low-lying areas dipping into the mid-single digits, even low single digits, eastern parts of the mainland into Cape Breton for inland areas. A very slight risk of some patchy frost in this corridor here, inland Antigonish County, inland Eastern Shore, Guysborough County, and into Cape Breton as well. Overall, we are looking at a quiet start to the day, but note the clouds building in late overnight into the early morning hours. This is low-level cloud, some fog in and around the coastline pretty early on Tuesday. Not overnight, but it will roll in as that moist flow will arrive through Tuesday morning. Note the sunshine tomorrow will be most prevalent in the northeast and into Cape Breton, and I do think we'll see a bit more sun than what you're seeing here with the model projecting for the valley as well. But a couple of spotty showers starting to push into the region throughout the afternoon into the early evening, but the bulk of the wet weather is going to hang on until the mid to late evening, and that's when I'm expecting we'll see more prevalent bands of showers starting to track through, maybe even the risk of a rumble of thunder. A fine day for Cape Breton, a variable day for Cape Breton with those southeast winds. Temperatures will be as chilly as 12 to 14 degrees in those onshore winds. I think Cheticamp will crack 20 tomorrow. Not quite as warm Port Hood and down towards Port Hawkesbury. Antigonish, though, likely near 20, and I think we'll be into the low 20s from New Glasgow up to Amherst and Tatamagouche. In and around Cobequid Bay is when we'll start to see those clouds really building in there pretty quickly in the morning. And note the variable temperatures. Halifax, I think the metro area will struggle 12, 13, 14, but we should get up towards 16 Enfield, 17 Windsor, and then into the 20s again for the valley. But you can see that South Shore will really feel that southeast flow tomorrow with those water temperatures again very chilly. Rounds of showers and again maybe a rumble of thunder lingering into early Wednesday primarily for Cape Breton, but it is a pretty quick clear out. Wednesday afternoon looks fantastic. We are looking at, we'll show you in a second, that next system coming in Thursday, but there is Wednesday clearing out pretty quickly. I do think the shower chances early on move out pretty fast. And then there's that Thursday system, primarily New Brunswick showers. I think Nova Scotia, this is primarily just a breezy day. Variable clouds, sun and cloud though, temperature still mild. Isolated shower chance for Friday. And at this point, the weekend looks quiet, though. A system tracking just to the south on Saturday. Let's hope it stays just to the south. Forecast model still a little wishy-washy on that. Father's Day, either way, looks like the best day of the weekend at this point.
Good
all right.
news.
You know you'll keep an eye on it all. Thanks so much, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Coming up, after a proposal to pause bike lane construction in Halifax, one urban planner says the network needs to be finished to address congestion.
Halifax Mayor Andy Fillmore says he plans to bring forward a motion to council to temporarily pause cycling infrastructure. He wants to hold off awarding new bike lane design and construction contracts. The mayor says it's in response to frustration over worsening traffic congestion, as well as the escalating cost of the all ages and abilities bicycle network.
Tristan Cleveland is an urban planner here in Halifax. So we're downtown in one of the bike lanes. Why do you think the city should keep going with this project?
Well, it is absolutely essential that Halifax builds out a minimum network of really safe, useful bike lanes. Because right now we have these little stubs of bike lanes that don't actually lead anywhere. So not that many people use them. I mean, quite a few people do bike in Halifax because it's just so darn useful here. But if we could just complete that network, then so many more would. And if we don't complete it in time, I mean, there's just going to be so much political backlash. People are already frustrated because they lose turning lanes, they lose parking for these bike lanes, and then they don't see many people using them. which I understand completely. So we just got to get it done. We got to get that minimum network in so that we can fill up these bike lanes with people.
All right, well, speaking of that, the backlash that the mayor is talking about, he says residents are frustrated, businesses are frustrated because of this traffic congestion that the bike lanes are causing. What do you say to that?
Well, again, I understand, but bike lanes really are a fundamental solution to traffic congestion. As downtowns grow in size and their economies grow, it means more people are going to try to get to more places in a given space, right? And so the amount of space each person needs to move is going to shrink. So that means more people are going to have to walk, bike, or take transit. And every big successful downtown around the world has more people walking, biking, and taking transit. More than 50% of people use those modes in most big downtowns. So we're going to have to transition to that mode of getting around, because cars take 2 to 15 times more space than people walking, biking, or taking transit.
Now, there's also been a concern about the price tag of this. Initially, $25 million. Now it's ballooned to $93 million. Is it worth that much money?
Well, that costs less than many highway interchanges, right? So for the cost of one highway interchange, we could build out our complete bike network. That's not to be flippant, though. It does deserve a careful look. Why is it costing this much? Is there a more efficient, cost-effective way, a nimbler way that we can get these bike networks rolled out? I'm all for that. But I just think we need to keep pushing until we get this minimum network done.
Now, some may argue that money might have been better spent to improve public transit. What would you say to those folks?
Well, I think yes, and because public transit is an absolutely crucial component of the puzzle, and for that as well, we need bus lanes that get people straight from Clayton Park and Sackville straight into downtown Halifax, so that the alternatives to driving are really, really great. That way, the people who are driving are the people who really need to drive because they don't have good alternatives. And everybody else have such good options that they will freely choose to jump on a quick transit bus that goes straight downtown or a nice, comfortable bike ride.
As you said, some folks are frustrated when they don't see people using bike lanes, that they're empty a lot of the time. Is that part of the problem? And, is the money going to just a few people's usage of the city? How do you respond?
I hear people sometimes say that, but, there are so many people with bikes in their house waiting to be used, and these people are being underserved. So many people who would love to just get outside and enjoy biking around. Research has shown over and over again that the happiest people are the people who get to walk or bike to work. It is so great for quality of life. And I think it's terrible that everyone who would love to bike to work are being deprived of that option and being forced to instead create more traffic for all of us.
Are you concerned that maybe the bike lanes would be taken down? I know that's not what the mayor is saying, but Ontario has had those musings, and are you concerned that might happen here?
I'm absolutely concerned. So the mayor is absolutely not saying that we're going to remove the bike lanes that are here, to be clear. But if we lose the momentum on building these bike lanes, and if we don't get that complete network done fast enough, I think there's a real risk that the blowback, the backlash is going to grow to such an extent that we could start losing bike lanes, and that would be a real shame.
Do you think there should be a shift in strategy of where the bike lanes are going?
That's a complex question. There's a real tension between putting them right on our main streets like Agricola or side streets just off of places like that. Certainly on side streets you can maybe get it done faster, but it doesn't necessarily go directly to where you need to get to. So there's lively debates about these details, but wherever we can get it done, the main thing is to get that main network done.
Now the issue is going before council tomorrow. What are you expecting?
I really don't know what to expect. There's a lot of differing opinions on council, and a lot of councillors represent the suburban and regional rural communities where most people do need to drive for almost all their trips when they leave home. And so for them, it's natural that they are especially frustrated by all this. But I hope that council really sees the big picture of the importance of active transportation for growing the downtown's economy long term and not getting us stuck in a point where driving is a terrible option because traffic is so bad, but walking, biking, and transit are even worse. That's not where we want to end up.
All right, well, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Coming up, ramping up defense spending. Prime Minister Mark Carney has announced Canada will meet its 2% NATO target well ahead of schedule.
And how a widow took on CIBC after her husband's $15,000 pension was put into a stranger's account. Welcome back. Prime Minister Mark Carney has announced that Canada will spend 2% of national GDP on defence this year.
That increase will ensure Canada meets its commitment to NATO, whose members agreed to spend that much on defence back in 2014. Kate McKenna has more.
Middle powers must compete for interests and attention, knowing that if they're not at the table, they're on the menu.
Prime Minister Mark Carney says the Canadian military is entering a new era as U.S. dominance on the world stage fades.
The United States is beginning to monetize its hegemony, charging for access to its markets and reducing its relative contribution to our collective security.
He says Canada will spend more than $9 billion more on defence by next March, and the country will finally hit the 2% of GDP spending target agreed to by NATO allies.
This is probably one of the most compelling articulations of national requirement, national ambition that I've heard from a Prime Minister as it relates to defence and security.
Well, I think it's a great step. It's something that the Conservatives have been calling for many years. In the last few decades, we hadn't been paying our fair share.
This announcement comes weeks before Carney is set to attend the NATO summit, where allies will discuss spending even more on defense.
The money is an important first step. If he'd have rolled in there without committing this funding to meet our 11-year-old spending target, he would not have had a lot of credibility amongst allies talking about what the new level of burden sharing should look like.
The Conservatives support defense spending, but want to know how the government will pay for it.
We support getting back to the 2% target as soon as possible. And we will support additional money for our military. That's why we're calling on the government to bring in a budget, because all of this will require a budget.
We have just begun the process to look for savings in government, to improve government productivity, to reallocate spending across government.
Even with this new money, expect more defense spending in the years to come. Carney made big election promises for new icebreakers, drones, and artillery, purchases that are not part of this announcement. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
The governor of California says he'll sue the U.S. president for deploying National Guard troops to quell immigration protests on the streets of Los Angeles. Gavin Newsom says the state should have been consulted. Meanwhile, Donald Trump says he supports his border czar's threat to arrest anyone who obstructs immigration enforcement officers, and that seemingly includes Governor Newsom.
He's daring Tom Homan to come and arrest him. Should he do it? I would do it if I were Tom. I think it's great. Gavin likes the publicity, but I think it would be a great thing.
There are more protests planned. On the weekend, the protests became violent. They began after federal authorities prepared to arrest illegal immigrants. About 2,000 National Guard members authorized by Trump are expected to be on the ground by the end of day.
An Australian TV reporter was shot with a rubber bullet on Sunday while covering the protests in Los Angeles.
At the LAPD moving in on horseback, firing rubber bullets at protesters, moving them on through the heart of LA.
A police officer in riot gear is seen pointing and shooting at reporter Lauren Tomasi. Her news organization says Tomasi and her camera operator are safe and continuing their work. Authorities have banned protests in downtown LA.
Israel has intercepted a boat carrying Greta Thunberg and other activists. The stated intention of those on the boat was to deliver aid to Gaza, but Israel calls the boat, quote, the selfie yacht, and says it was a publicity stunt. Crystal Gamansing reports.
The 12 activist crew members who were on board the Madeleine are expected to return to their home countries. Israeli government spokesperson David Mencer said Israel has no intention of detaining them for any period of time. Those with the Freedom Flotilla Coalition say they spent most of the day trying to figure out the whereabouts of the crew. Their last interaction with them was around 3 a.m. That's when Israel Defense Forces intercepted the vessel as it made its way from Italy towards Gaza. They boarded at about 3 a.m. and there were some images released at that time. There was also a lot of attention paid to pre-recorded messages from those on board. Those messages were meant to encourage people around the world to call for their release.
If you see this video, we have been intercepted and kidnapped in international waters by the Israeli occupational forces or forces that support Israel. I urge all my friends, family and comrades to put pressure on the Swedish government to release me and the others as soon as possible.
Mencer was asked about the language used in that video, and he took exception to Greta Thunberg using the phrase kidnapped.
In more than 20 months, Greta has not found one single moment to call on the release of our hostages. Not one single moment. And she has the chutzpah to say that she has been kidnapped.
While there was some aid on board the vessel, Mencer said this wasn't about feeding Gazans. He said it was about feeding individual egos. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, Jerusalem.
The defense teams have started their closing arguments at a high-profile sex assault trial in London, Ontario. All 5 former World Junior hockey players have pleaded not guilty. The complainant in the case is referred to by the initial EM. Megan Fitzpatrick reports viewers may find some details in this story disturbing.
The 5 defendants make their way into a London courthouse for what is expected to be the last week of a lengthy and complicated trial that began in April. Closing submissions got underway today, and it's the lawyers for the defendants who are going first. Michael McLeod, Alex Formanton, Carter Hart, Dylan Dubé, and Cal Foote have all pleaded not guilty to 1 count each of sexual assault. McLeod is facing a second charge of being a party to a sexual assault. His lawyer, David Humphrey, was the first defense lawyer to make closing arguments. He told Justice Maria Caracia that the Crown's case hinges on the complainant's testimony. She's known by the initials EM, and he called that testimony flawed. She's a witness with an entirely unbelievable and unreliable version of events, Humphrey said. He argued that EM created a false narrative of what happened in the early hours of June 19, 2018, because she was embarrassed and regretted the choices she made. It suited her purposes to present herself as a victim rather than take responsibility for those choices, Humphrey told the court. At the core of this case is the question of consent. When EM testified for 9 days, she said she had consensual sex with McLeod when they first got to the hotel, but was then surprised when other men came to the room, and that she did not consent to these sexual activities that followed. Humphrey argued that EM was a willing participant. Carter Hart's lawyer Megan Savard made a similar argument when she began her closing submissions. Hart was the only defendant to testify during the trial, and Savard urged the judge to view him as a credible witness. Her client obtained unequivocal, communicated consent to oral sex, Savard told the judge.
We believe EM.
Supporters of EM were at the courthouse today chanting, "We believe EM," as the defendants passed by them.
You know, survivors should never be blamed for their own assault, and you often feel really alone when you've gone through something as horrific as sexual assault. So showing that, people believe you, people support you, and you're not alone is really important to help people get the support that they need.
These closing submissions are expected to take several days. Once all the defense teams are finished, it will be the Crown's turn to make their final arguments. Megan Fitzpatrick, CBC News, London, Ontario.
After the loss of a loved one, an Edmonton family expected a routine pension transfer to go without a hitch. But instead, CIBC put the money into a stranger's account and blamed the grieving family for it. The CBC's Go Public, as Rosa Marcatelli explains what happened next.
When longtime lawyer and judge James Koshman died last fall, his family expected a smooth transfer of his $15,000 survivor benefit to his widow.
This was the decision that they made to say.
But the money never reached her. Instead, CIBC deposited it into a stranger's account. The bank blamed the family, saying they used the wrong transit number. That's the 5-digit code that directs deposits to specific branches. The Koshmans were baffled, since that number came directly from a CIBC employee, they say.
There's something very wrong about what's going on.
This all started because one bank was closing and the accounts were being transferred to another. CIBC later sent an email warning the family not to use the new transit number yet, to James's inbox, weeks after his death.
Especially when they know he's passed away, they still send him emails.
CIBC recovered about $3,000, then told the family they'd have to swallow the rest. The Koshmans filed complaints with the bank and then the bank's appeals office. Both times were told there's nothing more CIBC could do.
I just don't think it's right or it's fair.
This consumer advocate says the system is flawed.
Totally in favor of the powerful banks and totally against the customers who are on their own.
The Koshmans then turned to Canada's independent banking watchdog, OBSI. But even if OBSI had sided with them, Conacher says the family might not have seen a dime because OBSI lacks the power to force banks to pay.
It's completely negligent that no federal government, no federal finance minister has done anything to correct this.
After Go Public contacted CIBC, the bank reversed course and returned the full amount to the family. CIBC says its complaint process meets all required standards, but after reviewing the unique circumstances of the case, it decided to reimburse the family. The Koshmans are relieved to have their money, but worry about others who might not be so lucky. Rosa Marcatelli, CBC News, Calgary.
Canadian scientists have determined that Ozempic doubles the risk of a vision loss in diabetics. Christine Birak has more on what researchers at the University of Toronto have found.
So it's like having a blind spot right in the middle of your vision.
He's talking about macular degeneration, the leading cause of blindness in people over 65.
Here you can see
This retinal surgeon led a study looking at whether newer diabetes drugs like Ozempic and Mounjaro might increase the risk of certain eye diseases. The findings?
There was a risk that was twice as high of developing this wet macular degeneration in patients who are on the GLP-1 receptor agonist compared to those diabetic patients who are not.
Double the risk, but the study puts that number in perspective. Researchers in Ontario examined the health records of nearly 140,000 older adults with diabetes. They found, among those taking newer GLP-1 drugs, the risk of developing neovascular age-related macular degeneration was 2 in 1,000. For non-GLP-1 users, it was 1 in 1,000. A small risk, but the research can be meaningful.
There's many times when, there's these wonder drugs that come out, and sometimes we find other effects that weren't anticipated.
Doctors all agree the health benefits of GLP-1 drugs for obesity and diabetes patients outweigh the risks.
These medicines are powerful and very, very effective tools, but any tool used incorrectly or badly with inappropriate care can cause harm.
Nobody wants to have their vision affected.
Rick Rangelbraun uses Ozempic to manage his diabetes.
Every medication, there's side effects, and you have to be careful and watch for them, and then bring them to the attention of your doctor.
While the risk is small, some doctors say they may now think twice about prescribing GLP-1s to diabetes patients with pre-existing eye disease, or advise them beforehand. If there's any change in your vision, get checked immediately. Christine Birak, CBC News, Toronto.
The weather update is brought to you by Tourisme Gaspésie. Plan your stay in Gaspésie at tourismegaspésie.com and enjoy extraordinary moments.
All right, thoroughly enjoyed the sun today, that is for sure.
Definitely took some time to soak it up.
Yeah, and hopefully if you didn't get a taste today, you can get a taste again on Wednesday. Not going to see a whole lot tomorrow in the metro area and along the Atlantic coastline, but it will be pretty good for northern parts of the province. First and foremost, let's have a look at our viewer picture of the day. And this one taken by Barry Burgess at Peggy's Cove. And you can see that, the fog in the mix when this was happening. And so Barry heard this horn from a distance and said, that's not a foghorn, but indeed it's an Alps horn. And yes, this fellow was playing the Alps horn there. And apparently it's a great way to bring in the cattle.
I wonder if you can play a tune on that.
I'm not sure.
Maybe
but
it is good for the cattle. I don't know.
If you're at Peggy's Cove, perhaps you'll see this gentleman tooting his horn there.
Impressive.
At Peggy's Cove. And thanks to Barry for sharing that. So temperatures at Peggy's Cove likely 12 degrees tomorrow, and it is going to be foggy as well with that fog rolling in. A much different story for northern parts of the province as temperatures are going to be into the low 20s. We'll be into the 14 to 18 range for Cape Breton with a better chance for 20s in Inverness County, and widespread 20-degree temperatures on Wednesday. Chance for showers in the morning, but clearing into the afternoon with quite a bit of sunshine.
Sounds so very good. Thanks, Ryan. Well, this past weekend, Halifax's Indian community celebrated the Festival of Chariots. This was the fourth year the city has hosted the event. The festival originated in the ancient city of Puri, India, and has been celebrated for more than 5,000 years.
The main event honors the spirituality of God, where deities are taken in a procession through the streets on large, elaborately decorated chariots.
Halifax's festival included a parade downtown, performances, crafts, and Indian cuisine.
And a great turnout for sure.
Yeah.
That's it for us tonight. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Good night.
Good night.